Hanging in there.
I don't know, I'll find something that I want to do soon. So I'm moving with this off the corner. That's the, well, sort of, I was the creative risk management side now, I'm looking at the behaviors. So, yeah, I have to talk about the interaction on that side.
Close them, close whatever, close them. Yeah, keep checking video going. I'm leaving now.
What's styling him in? Styling him in. Hey, Miguel. Vicky.
Good morning, sir.
Vicky.
Morning.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you loud and
There you go.
clear. See you as well.
Yeah, so yes. Put it and then press the button, yeah?
I've got some news for you. In the UK today, it's over 90 degrees.
Oh, wow.
No.
Gee.
It's hotter than you guys have got.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
The problem we have here is, not many people have air conditioning
Oh, my God.
because, we normally have like heating that we need.
Right, right, right.
And France is even worse. You might have seen France on the news. They've had the hottest day in France ever on record. Almost 50 degrees, so that's 120.
Right. Wave, huh?
It's a heat wave, yeah. It's coming up from Africa because the wind that we normally get, normally it's from either the west, which is from the Atlantic, which is quite a cooling breeze, or we have the wind from the north, which is very cold because it comes down from Iceland. But at the moment the wind's turned right round and it's coming up from Africa, which of course is very, very hot, the northern area of Africa.
Wow.
So that's a quick update on the weather.
But normally by this time our weather is very hot. I'm surprised. We have pretty good weather considering this is the month of June, July.
I've been dying.
This week,
Not 120, not 90.
the heat index is 106.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes.
It doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel that way.
You go out between 12 and 3?
You probably don't leave the office.
That's true, between 12 and 3.
Oh my
Yeah, I
goodness.
don't.
Do you leave the office?
No, I am always in and out of office. I'm always in and out of cool air.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't feel it like that.
It's tough.
High 80s
The office
and the
can be
index is
quite cool
105,
and,
106.
Yeah.
You've got good aircon in your car usually, haven't you?
Yes,
Simple enough,
by
yeah.
the time you get to where you go in the car, so hot. If you go out
That's so
between that
annoying.
12 and 3,
Yeah, well, I've got aircon in my small car, and today's the first day. I've had it on the whole year. So how are you guys doing? Are you doing all right?
We're doing good. You're breaking up a little bit, Keith. You're coming in like a little blurred
Yeah,
though.
it just broke up there. That's Miguel. He'll have to check his internet signal.
Badu to it.
Has he stepped out, has he?
Yeah, he has.
Yeah, well, if it starts to break up again, you give him a shout,
Okay.
because generally it's from your end, because I'm not
Yeah.
being clever, but we've got like a high-speed fiber optic
Oh,
line,
wow.
and I know Miguel has some problems, with the signal.
Yeah.
So last week we started off our program and we talked about the importance of trying to identify the client, and we used the terminology, KYC, and I also mentioned track record, which you found a little bit strange, but that's basically what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to know the customer, and how we started off was we tried to talk about the concept of a personal balance sheet. And remember, I said to you, well, you could do your own balance sheet right now if you wanted to. And that's the important thing with the balance sheet. You have to remember the date that you're actually doing it, because of course it will change. It will change with your client, and it will change with yourself. I mean, if you did your personal balance sheet today, and if I met you like a year ago and asked you to do one then, the figures could be a bit different depending on what's happened to your individual circumstances. So it's very, very important when we look at the balance sheet to remember it's a moment in time. And same when we go into business customers. So when we start to look at small business, medium business, large business, the balance sheet, you always have to remember,
Page 8, just a summary. Yeah.
is the balance sheet a moment in time.
Mhm.
Now the other document that we started to talk about, particularly on the Edwards case, was the importance of a budget planner. And the budget planner, you'll find when we move into small businesses, a little bit later this morning, we start to look at the income statement. It used to be called the profit and loss account. Some people still call it that. Most people generally now call it the income statement. And you see the income statement is just what it says. It's what income's coming into the business, what the expenses are, and whether there's a profit or a loss. That's the same if we think back to Edwards. With Edwards, we were trying to identify what his income was, and I think we all agreed that his income looked a bit tight, relative to the large amount of expenses he was having, and we were trying to be as helpful as we could on the basis, he had been a customer of the bank for 5 years, and he'd generally been running a satisfactory account, but then we knew from the brief, that he'd actually moved house recently, and of course we all know from our own experience that when you move property, whether you're renting or you're buying, there always seems to be more expenses than you're expecting. And then you guys started to really get into the case, and the gentleman mentioned, I'm not sure if it's the gentleman on my left there or the one who was at the back last week, but somebody said the words, "Oh, Mrs. Edwards," and that was really good because we didn't know anything about Mrs. Edwards. We didn't know whether she's at home looking after the children. That's what we suspected. We didn't know if she'd worked before, and if so, if she had a good job. And in the future, if she was thinking about going back to work, which would obviously help the financial situation. And the other thing, of course, that we didn't know that was really, really important was we didn't know if she was aware or not, that Mr. Edwards was currently in a difficult financial position. So all of these things need exploring, and that's what you're expected to do, as a financial planner and becoming certified financial planner. You have to dig deep because you'll get information, but there's always going to be a list. So you'll always have lists of, what you know, what you found out, and then you'll always have a list alongside that of extra information you need. And that'll be exactly the same when we look at business situations. You'll get some facts quite easily, and then there'll be a number of things that you've got to try and find out. Now the other important thing with Edwards, of course, was he was making the offer, if you remember, of a second mortgage that would be collateral for the bank on the property. But again, we didn't know if Mrs. Edwards was a party to the property. And the lady who's had a lot of legal experience, Katrina, she was explaining.
A little bit.
A little bit. There's an important time scale on this in Bahamas. So that's why, as your program develops, towards the end of the program, you'll see certain things are very, very applicable to the Bahamas region, in terms of the regulatory context in which you're operating. And that's very important indeed. And it's important in that role as a financial planner. And it's important for us because, is Mrs. Edwards a party to the property? If she's not actually a signatory to the deeds, does she have a matrimonial interest? And we started to discuss that because you would have straight away in the UK, as the wife, you would have instantly what we call a matrimonial interest in the property. So he can't just say to the bank, oh, I'm going to pledge the property to you, without an agreement is what we're trying to say. Which again leads to the point, does she know about all this? Does she know what's going on? So part of the conversation with Mr. Edwards would be to ask, does your wife know about the current situation? Is she going to go back to work when the children start school? And what about the property? Is she a joint owner of the property, etc., etc. So it's quite a long way to go. And then we discussed the options, and I think most persons, people don't always agree. Some people will say, and take quite a hard attitude, when he's got himself into this mess, he can sort himself out. Well, I don't think that's a very good attitude to take, as a potential financial planner, because we're trying to help these people. But then there were options, and one of the options was like a partial solution. Yeah, and the problem with a partial solution is the problem can reoccur, can't it?
That's true.
So you say, with a partial solution, I like to call it the kind of temporary fix. And you'll see that when you look at your business situations where sometimes the business will be having some problems, and the directors or the bankers in discussion, etc., may come up with something that appears to fix the problem, but actually it's only a temporary solution. So we have to be careful about that, and that we're trying to, get a better resolution to what the case is. So I think most people would agree that consolidation would be a good idea, but the danger with consolidation is that you might slip into problems again. So if you get into this consolidation position, you've got to be very strong on something. They're broken up there.
Yeah.
Is it okay again, Dylan?
Yeah, it's okay.
We have to be very careful to set up some sort of monitoring agreement with the customer, and we make a diary of when we want to see him again, yeah? I would suggest to you, with a case like Edwards, 6 months is probably too long, because, he's had quite a number of problems there. So I know it's a private personal thing, but I would probably set a review meeting in 3 months' time.
Mhm.
Because, I want to make sure quite quickly that things are working out okay for him, and there'll be certain things that we want to make sure of. So that's how we've handled the Edwards case. So good morning to the lady just walking in.
Hi, morning.
And the next thing we're going to look at, just to get us into this financial planning mood, again, we're going to look at the case study of Jane Brown, which I think you'll find very, very different from John Edwards. Now, you should find this in the same sort of area where you found Edwards, in the case study section. And what I'm going to try and do now is share my screen. You've got the Jane Brown on the screen.
What's the name? James Brown?
Jane Brown.
James.
Before the case you did, yes, last time, yes, already.
We haven't done Jane Brown, we did John Edwards. Probably should you go around and read on the big screen.
I didn't have module
Oh, this module.
And you found it in the folder?
one.
No, I'm still
Second
looking.
page, covered.
That's right. Okay. So you find it in the folder, can you see it on the screen as well?
Yeah.
Yeah? That's me, I'm sharing the screen so you can see it.
Oh, yeah, fine.
I don't think I have that in my folder.
Well, if you don't, can you share it
This
with the
module,
person
I
next
remember
to
I
you?
had to adjust mine, there's something in the box, so I had to put it in the
What?
I didn't know that.
Oh.
Well, I left it as is.
Right.
And where was yours?
You know, in module one, you have, it goes up to 20 something, and then it starts at 1 to 9, I think it's more.
Okay.
And in the second section, page 6
Module 2A.
of module 1.
In the study
Oh,
case
okay.
section,
Okay.
after
Got
that.
it?
Yeah, the next page.
We start to the beginning.
So if you like module 2.
It's page 6
No, no, I
on
went through this entire thing and I don't see it in here. I don't
Go to
think
page
it's,
20, go to page 20.
I don't think it's inside this particular one.
You found
It's
capital.
module 1, case studies and questions,
You see this
and it's page 6, Jane Brown,
James
page
Brown.
6.
I remember seeing
You
that.
see James Grover, it's like 2 pages after.
Not Jane Brown, sir.
So that's what I was explaining. I have
It's
James.
right there.
Right, you have it.
Oh, there you go. I got it. Thank you.
Right. Okay, now, you'll find the hardest part about the program is actually finding your way through the materials,
Yeah.
which is why it's a really good idea as you progress, to make sure you know what's where and make your own, like, index of the modules, because when you come up to the exam,
Yeah.
you need to know where things are pretty quick, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so here we go with Jane Brown. So Jane Brown, sales representative for a computer company. She's 35 years old and has worked for a current employer for 5 years. She's had a bank account for the last 3 years. Her monthly salary credit varies with the amount of sales commission she earns, but averages $1,000. In recent months, she's been taking bank overdrafts on her account in anticipation of the receipt of her salary. The range of her account over the last 12 months has been between 700 debits, that's overdrawn, and 500 credit, and the average balance has been $120 credit. Now Mrs. Brown calls in to see you. She's in the process of getting divorced from her husband, with the divorce becoming final next week. The Browns have no children, and a clean break divorce settlement from which she will receive $30,000 has been agreed. So it's worth highlighting that part. For the past year, she's been living with a new partner, Jack Martin, whom she intends to marry as soon as her divorce is complete. Martin owns the flat in which she's living. Brown and Martin wish to use the divorce settlement monies to buy a 6-month timeshare in a property on a new development in Florida. The timeshare will cost $60,000, provided they can complete the purchase quickly. They therefore asked to borrow $60,000 immediately, of which $30,000 will be repaid from the divorce settlement. They would then expect to be able to pay the residual loan over 10 years from renting out the timeshare when they are not using it. They are willing to give you a mortgage over the timeshare as security or collateral. So what we're asking you to do is analyze the financial position and what would you recommend. So I'll just give you, say, 5 minutes or so to read this through again, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion about the situation. Jane Brown. Okay, so once again, if you wanted to, you could, refer back to that Campari template that we discussed last week, to start getting us focused on the particular case. So remember, see on the Campari, and I've got it on the screen there. This is from your notes last week. The C standing for the character. Now I know this is difficult because you haven't actually met Jane Brown yet. And obviously during an interview you can get a better feeling for the character as a person. But any initial thoughts about the character, what we know so far?
Well, what I have, in terms of the Know Your Customer, she works for a sales organization and a sales computer company, and I'm sure the bank or the financial advisor would be mindful that when you're dealing with sales, your pay is never really stable. It's not stable.
Yes.
It's not guaranteed.
That's it.
And she's 35 years old and she's worked for the company for 5 years. So, I mean, to some degree, given the fact that she is a sales representative and her bank account has only been for 3 years, I think that the bank would, be a little wary, simply because of her, the type of work she does.
Yes.
And when I apply the Campari module,
Yes.
when I look at her ability, she has,
Good. Yes.
she has a salary average of about $1,000, but more importantly, she has a $30,000 divorce settlement that she's expecting next week, which is pretty good.
Yes.
In terms of the margins, well, I didn't really get into the margins per se, but in terms of the purpose, it's to purchase a timeshare. Now, the thing with timeshare is that it's very unpredictable.
Yes.
Timeshares is not considered a very safe, sound, prudent investment. I mean, maybe from time to time, if they were to get a good probably put it out on the market, they might could get it rented out. But it's given how the reputation of timeshares, it's risky.
Yeah.
So
The other thing, we don't know very much about the timeshare, do we?
It's risky.
I was gonna say, we don't know what the mortgage, the maintenance on the timeshare is, and we also don't know what they expect to rent it out for. So you gotta factor in if what you're renting it out for and the cost to maintain the timeshare.
Excellent.
When you factor that into paying an additional fee of the mortgage, I believe, and then you also don't know the income of the man she's about to marry. So, because they're gonna be married in a few, so you're.
But what concerns me is that even though she's applying for the $30,000, and of course she only have a salary of $1,000, she's asking for $60,000. So with a gentleman that she is just after coming out of a divorce to take on another relationship with which there's no guarantee that will work. I mean,
I think that the concern here too is she clearly is strapped for cash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because she
That's the
is
ending.
using an overdraft before her salary comes in.
Mhm.
So she clearly has I think one of the main concerns, she has a financial issue. You need to understand what is causing the financial issue. Is it she's living with Martin? Yeah. He has his own flat, but is she paying the mortgage? What else is she doing?
Yeah,
So
so
there
you
must
have to
be
look
a
at the
reason
financial
why
situation.
she is strapped for cash.
She's strapped for cash, she spend money that she don't have.
Yeah, she's spending
And
more
then
than
you
she's.
But she's
can't
spending
make that
it on her.
assumption. You can't make that assumption.
It said that, it said that.
No. You can't make that assumption. I say that because you don't know. Yes, she's coming from a previous marriage with marriage, so those debits that she's doing monthly, you don't know what those are for. Is it because she had previous obligations with the first husband, the first marriage, and because she's now split and actually living with another man, so she may have.
Yeah, because he may not
She
be
may
paying the
have,
bills.
exactly. So you have to kind of get a full assessment of.
Where those debts are coming
No,
from.
I'll be honest, I don't know what it is that she's spending it on.
Right.
But it still comes back that she don't have the money in the first
No,
place.
she don't.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
No, but she have quite a lump sum coming in, despite her
I mean, I don't
financial
think she can-
situation.
I
I
don't know how to
mean,
do
it
this.
clearly states
I don't
that,
think
you know,
she's gonna
she's
do
getting
this.
a clean, and the word is clean break. She's getting a clean break.
That
Divorce
doesn't
settlement
make
us
it-
30
That doesn't
grand
mean, yeah.
of liquid
As a
cash. That
lender,
could
and you're
really.
looking at somebody, no matter how much money they get, if they cannot manage
Service
their
to debt.
finances, then they can get that 30,000
And I agree.
a month.
I totally
all in
agree.
one. So you need to understand the root cause. What is the root cause? What is causing the financial issue that she is in?
And then why
It's
is
combining with the
why is the
character.
30,000 going directly to buy the timeshare? What is
Yeah,
he
gotcha.
contributing? Because it's only 30,000. So
And
the
she
payment
has
is-
no assets.
Exactly.
She has nothing.
No
It
savings
is
to
Yeah,
fall back
and until the
on.
next
as she
one.
moves forward for her to see how she can develop some assets.
Okay.
Timeshare would be something in terms of investment.
I know that's not.
That's a substantial amount to pay for a timeshare and you have no assets.
And another thing too that they mentioned here as far as the timeshare, they said that the collateral basically would be that they would use
The 30,000.
30,000, but they would use the payments, they would rent out the
When they're not
timeshare with
using
it.
it.
Who
They're
is
not
to
gonna
say
rent it?
that I
Yeah.
want to rent that
Uh-huh.
once I
Yeah,
get
it's
that?
risky. Yeah,
You see what I'm
it's a risky
saying?
investment.
So how is the bank now
But they
supposed
said they were going
to?
to rent it out.
Yeah, you
But
going
they
to
may not
rent it
get
out.
rented.
You may not get it rented, and you may say, you know what, I want to go and I want to enjoy my timeshare. Too bad, we'll find the money another time to make the payment. So that all that is very
And if
subjective.
you do rent it, how much are you renting it for?
But they-
Yeah, this
Will
is
that be
very
enough to
subjective.
cover, because now you would need that
Because
information.
they said they wanted to repay the loan back from the rental income. So
They
so
said
what if they don't
that.
get it rented? So if that's their only source of paying the timeshare loan off, then
They ain't find themselves in another hole.
They're doing very well, they're getting right into this, and the other fundamental question is how many weeks are they getting for the $60,000?
That's true, that's
It's a
true for
timeshare.
timeshare, that's not like that's a condo, that's a
It might
timeshare.
only be a few, it might be very few weeks.
In 6
So
months.
how on earth, yeah, so how on earth are they gonna get enough income?
I thought they said we get 6 months.
No,
Oh, I read it wrong.
No, we don't know.
60,000 you sold.
No, that's a divorce settlement within 6 months.
Oh,
If you buy the timeshare within 6
Well, no,
months, you
it's
get
it's correct,
60,000.
it's divorce money, it's about 6 months timeshare. Yes, it's 6 month timeshare, yeah.
6
For
months.
Oh,
months,
buy
yeah.
6 months timeshare.
Okay.
oh, it is?
yeah, buy a
So they
6 month
do-
timeshare.
That's like a
That's
year.
even worse, that makes it even worse.
And then they want to be there for part of that time, so
Yeah,
you
so it's
know,
not, yeah.
I don't think
Yeah,
they could
and then
generate
there's-
sufficient
And
money
there's
to
another
service
part
that debt.
where it says they're willing to give the bank a
What about the
mortgage
character?
over the timeshare as security. Now I'm not really a legal
You
expert,
can only speculate.
so again,
I
maybe
don't know why
Katrina has
she
an
said
opinion
that.
on this, but
That's a little sketchy.
now my understanding when you buy a timeshare, what you actually buy is the timeshare, so you don't buy the property, because the property generally is owned by, some company who are then selling shares for usage of the property. So I'm not sure that this would be collateral for the bank, so I'm not sure.
I
No.
don't think that rental could service a $30,000 debt.
And probably couldn't service anyway. Now there's another very important point, which the lady on my first left said. I remember you're the bank manager, but I can't remember your name, I'm sorry. But the lady made a very valid point. See, there's two things
That's you
Okay,
in the
they
to
brown.
this. Timeshare thing is a little bit of a diversion. But the fundamental point is what you were trying to get at, and your conversation was really, really good. There's a fundamental problem here. If we put the timeshare to one side for the moment, there's a fundamental problem of her managing her own financial affairs. Yeah?
She's a risk taker.
Yeah. So she's not necessarily risky, but because of the volatility of her commission, and we don't know what she's spending her money on. We don't know the situation with Mr. Martin, as you said. She might be helping out Mr. Martin to pay the bills. That generally happens, doesn't it? Particularly with a new relationship. Until the honeymoon period's over and then things get a bit more difficult. Excuse my cynicism.
That's the truth.
Yeah, but it's true. We don't know anything about Mr. Martin.
I mean,
We
when this thing they living in.
don't know the value of the flat. He owns the flat, but you know, was it a $30,000 flat with a $29,000 loan against it? We don't know. So that's something else we've got to find out. So the starting point with Jane Brown would be, as you correctly say, is to try and work with her on her own personal situation. So we do the budget planner, you know, we look at the balance sheet, and we suspect that she doesn't actually have any assets because we're not told she's got any assets.
And it says
And
clean
then,
break.
and then when we're getting closer to that, then we can start to look at this investment
Clean break.
in Florida. Now there's another problem with this investment because it says they want to borrow the $60,000 immediately, of which $30,000 will be repaid
Once.
from divorce settlement. Yeah, but look, okay, the divorce has been agreed.
It may take a couple of years.
Yeah, well said, yeah, but it didn't tell you when it's going to be paid. You know, it's all very well saying,
Yeah, I
well,
found
here's
it
the
now.
divorce agreement.
So,
You know, Mr. Brown, as he was, he's going to pay $30,000 because it's a clean break, blah, blah, blah. But when is it going to be paid is my question.
I
You know, is it next week?
I'd like to make a point on her salary.
Is it next year?
Yeah. I'd like to make a point on her salary. Maybe one thing I would do is find out why her commissions are down. Maybe the industry she's in, the sector is contracting, and or maybe they have new competition. So maybe her salary may not be growing, or maybe she needs to have a change of career because she's, I don't know, you know, what's the factors behind her commission not being
So
what it
good.
should be.
So which document could you use of the documents we looked at so far to get a good starting point with Jane? Which document would we use?
The budget planner.
Budget planner.
Yeah, excellent, the budget planner. Because with the budget planner we can try and see, you know, what's happening with the commission, and it leads into a good conversation. Oh, you always earned around this amount, and then she might say, oh, I was earning twice that last year, but as you've just said, you know, the sector's changed, so that will get us up to a good discussion, and then we can go through our expenses, and then we'll quickly see are these expenses applicable to her alone, or they're going into the kind of new joint situations. That'd be a good starting point. Now, in Module 2, you know, Module 2 is called Client Relationship Skills. And you're going to be looking at these situations because they're all very different situations. But can you imagine then that you call Jane Brown in because you need to meet her to start to talk to her. But when Jane comes into your office, how do you think she's going to be, you know, with her general frame of mind? You know, she's coming into the office, is she going to come in quite a negative way? Or is she coming in feeling very positive because she's got a divorce going through and she's living with Mr. Martin now and they're going to get married and they're thinking about investing in a timeshare. So, you know, they're getting together, they're going to have this lovely place they can go on vacation. So so are you going to have quite a difficult interview is the question?
But
Yes, I
Mr.
think
Martin
she'll
is
be
probably going to come in with us, so she's
She's gonna be excited.
She's gonna be happy until she gets the bad news.
She's going to be very
Yeah,
happy.
exactly. So she's going to come in very, very optimistic, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because, you know, she's met this new man, they're going to get married, she's getting rid of the old guy, the old guy's agreed 30,000, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they've got this great opportunity to buy this timeshare in Florida, and I know you guys all like to go to Florida to do shopping and what have you. But you're going to have to do what I might call, and what you would call, I think, in Bahamas, a reality check.
Yes.
This is the reality check. And you mentioned that Shark Tank program last week, and I guess part of that's a reality check, you know, the people coming in with these different business ideas. But with Jane, it's going to be quite a difficult interview because we don't want to kill off her optimism.
Right.
But what we have to do is try and manage the interview in such a way that she can see that we're going to try and help her. But our starting point with helping her is to try and help her on a personal basis to begin with, and then we can progress into this situation regarding the timeshare. And the timeshare, the answer regrettably is no at the moment, because we can't see the source of repayment, because as the gentleman said, we don't know what she's going to rent it out for, we don't know the period she's going to rent it out for. Most timeshares have a management charge, servicing charge, etc., etc. So we don't know all those details. And the main reason we're going to turn it down is because it's not applicable security, and when is this $30,000 going to be coming in? Yeah, if she can say, oh, we've had this lister's letter, it's definitely confirmed, it's coming in 1 month's time, well, that again changes the scenario of our discussion. But,
How would you take a $30,000 settlement and put it all into someone someone new like that?
That's how much she in love.
You gotta do all
Yeah.
that.
I would have put that 30,000 on
see,
fence.
see when you
She
talk
fall
to
in love
her,
hard with this new man to go take out her full settlement to invest back with him. She badly in love.
so you see when you talk to her about her personal situation,
That's true, so probably
and you
needs.
try and do the budget planning with her, etc., etc., she might begin to realize, well, maybe I need to sort myself out first, and just as you just suggested, this $30,000, it could be a good investment vehicle in something that would generate her some income, to help with the fluctuations in her salary.
But
So,
more importantly, her and what's the new guy named Martin? They're not married. They're not even married yet. So I don't understand. Most banks don't normally give loans out to
Yeah.
persons that are not a couple.
I
They
mean, they
do.
do it.
They said they get
My cousin
married.
and a boyfriend bought his property
Oh,
together
wow.
several years ago.
They would
Oh,
do it, but
okay.
I mean,
So she
Yeah, we're
gets
doing
married,
easy
so
for them
suppose
to.
it's
I
complete,
think they
so.
look at that. It's no
But-
commitment there.
That ain't no guarantee,
That's why you get additional security, like for instance, my husband and I, before we were married, we went and we got a property.
Right.
But what it is that you use additional collateral such as a salary deduction for him or something,
They don't have that, yeah.
along that. Yeah, that's what you got.
Yeah,
Get that
Yeah, you got
information.
yeah. So that's I don't know.
Sometimes look at it,
I
if you're not a
probably-
couple,
Yeah,
Because
because it's no, it's.
I think she just had the
Just
wrong
quite
man.
frankly.
She
Say we just did it.
Lauren Martin, and he helped her.
You just
He had the
got
same
that,
bonus up.
And we need to explore, the fact that Mr. Martin owns, what's that worth?
That's
It might be worth $200,000, and he might have a mortgage of only $20,000. So
But
that would be good.
But they're not even, if let's say the flat is free and clear, they're not even factoring that in as any collateral to the timeshare. They're not even mentioning that to be.
no, because that's his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's good ones, yeah, but if he wants the benefit of the timeshare, which there seems they're asking, they're asking for $60,000, it says they, it doesn't say Jane Brown, it says they're asking. Well, if they're asking, he's going to have to consider putting his flat in as collateral because the
Yeah, she throwing
timeshare
up everything.
isn't
She's throwing up
sufficient
30
collateral.
grand in all the time.
Yeah.
They say they're willing to give you a mortgage over timeshare.
He's
Yeah,
not.
he ain't put it as
They didn't say the flat, just the timeshare.
No,
Look
exactly.
here, you meet me with this by myself,
Uh-huh.
so I'm not putting you on this
Yeah, Martin
timeshare.
already. Martin will go with her to help her get the 60,000, but he according to this, this case, he's not presenting anything to help her get it.
But
He
the
wants the
thing
full
is-
30 grand. Putting that to her, that
But
is
the thing
crazy.
is, what's
So
you
looks
say
like
they
Mr.
get
Martin's a
married,
very
doesn't mean
smart
that they still
cookie,
can get
and
married.
Jane
He can keep
is
his flat
taking
and
along
still
for a
get
ride.
married.
Yeah, she maybe get to take a through, and she would need to be. The thing with these kind of situations is that sometimes financial advisors really do see that,
Yes.
but it's very, very sensitive
Yeah,
in how they approach some of these things because
It's approach.
even if the financial advisor want to give her some sound advice to say, okay, Jane, we can slam the brakes on here and give a real reality check. The question is how close this relationship she have to Martin, and would she convey to Martin word for word what the advisor said to her in terms of cautioning, or her investment or her expected cash it's tricky. It is tricky.
It is pretty. I think it is part
This is
of
why
the
we have
as
this
a
Yeah.
financial
This
advisor.
Yeah.
This would be a tricky one. Yeah, because she might go running back to Mr. Martin and say, oh, you know that advisor I met, that Katrina, she was terrible. She said, you've got to sort this out, you need to look after your 30,000.
Exactly. But this is what's in the
Generate some income, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing
I
that.
had an issue with a husband
You
and
know?
wife.
No, we can't. No, we
But I
can't.
was very-
Hear what
I
Sharice
was
is saying.
clear. I was
Sharice is
clear.
saying, as a
I
financial
pulled the
advisor.
wife aside.
What? And I mean,
I pulled the wife aside and I said,
Sometimes you have to do that.
no, I could, but I couldn't say it from the husband, and I indicated to her, now, this is what I see. Okay?
Yeah.
You can look at it and you can make a decision on the way forward, and I said, I just wanted to tell you, you can relate to, it was very sensitive, you can relate the same information to your husband. But
She
I
just
think
gave it
it's
a knowledge.
important that you need to understand this and see this.
She
And
would
what
have
you
an
can
informed
tell.
discussion.
And I guess he may have had his attitude, but they still came back. But I believe it is important,
Yes.
a man or a woman, because
right.
it could be either
It could be
one.
reversed, right?
Yeah, they put-
Yes.
As a financial advisor to explain this is what I see, because that's what they
Right.
have
Coming
there
to you for,
for.
right, because they don't know what to consider.
For advice.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're right on the button there, that's really, really good. It's going to be a very difficult interview. You talk on the next module about how you handle these difficult interviews. But you can see it will be because, there's lots of unknown factors here. We don't know how Mr. Martin's going to react to all this. We don't know much about him. But our main thrust to begin with, I think we've all agreed, is to try and help Jane Brown look at her own current situation
Yes.
and try and improve it if she can.
Yes.
And that's who we're trying to advise. Where does Mr. Martin bank? Is he at the same bank or is he a different bank? What's the situation? Again, what does he know about all this? So it's a tricky case. But the
Yeah.
first step, I think, is to try and work with Jane
Yeah, it is.
to show that we're trying to be very helpful. We're going to look at what our income is. Why does it vary? How does it fluctuate? What's our normal expenses? So there's our income, there's our normal expenses. Is there a margin? Or is it a bit of a problem? That she's not got enough income or she's got too many expenses. So that's our starting point to cooperate on that. And then the next bit is this timeshare, which we'd have to say, well, for the moment, we don't think it's too good an idea because the bank won't lend $60,000 because it's a full purchase price. And we're not sure of the repayment ability from renting it out or the repayment ability from you've got no surplus income, how can you pay? What does Mr. Martin earn? Does he have enough money to pay? Is there a fallback position with him? So all in all, it's quite a tricky case study.
But
Any more things?
let me, Keith, a quick question.
Yeah.
Given the fact that she is, that she has a credit, what is this, a debit? Well, let me just.
Credit advice.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not
That's
consistent.
no, it's not.
Okay, so given the situation that she may have, maybe an overdraft or a situation where she is maybe living above her means to some degree,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As financial advisors, and given the fact that she's coming into us very, enthused and in such a in good spirits, I would say.
Yes.
Is it a financial advisor's responsibility to be careful how they curve that enthusiasm? Do they have to gauge that?
Well, that's a very good question. It'll depend to a degree on the financial advisor, won't it? And the situation as you encounter it. But the point is, we have to be professional, yeah?
Right.
I just want to point out something.
This is a certified international financial planner program, right?
Yeah.
So, you're going to get an international certification, so, we're going to behave in a professional way, and most customers will respect that. There'll be the occasional one who won't. If it's a very volatile man comes in, and he's all shouting and screaming at you and blah, 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 you know, there'll be interviews that will be very difficult, and you'll be given advice on this in module number 2. But with somebody like Jane, the starting point that you're taking is very good. She's been overdrawn, we know that from the bank account. She's been as much as $700 debit, which isn't a huge amount. And it doesn't look as if there's a formal overdraft agreement. It just looks as if it's an anticipation type of agreement, you know, before a salary comes in. But a good starting conversation with her, I'm sure, would be to look at, you know, can she manage in a normal situation? And then we say, well, let's have a look at our budget planner form with you. You know, we found this helps people to see what they've got coming in, what they've got going out, you know, what's the major expenses, is there any expenses that can be saved a bit, is there any areas where you can improve your income, like that other lady was discussing. Maybe she's been doing it 5 years, and maybe there's another sector that will put a better commission up. It's not our job. Yeah.
I was just looking at this. So another reason why I don't think she should do this with this gentleman is really because I said I was looking at it, and I don't think it would be a good idea for her to even do any business ventures with this gentleman. It seemed like her overdraft started happening when she started living with him, because it was the last 12 months she's been and it's been more recent, and then it was in the last 12 months she's been $707 in debt. And she's been averaging $120. So just recently she's been down.
Yeah, she was living with a partner.
Yeah, she's living with this new gentleman. So I think he's actually putting a bit of a strain on her financially.
Possibly, but again, you'll crystallize that when you do the budget planner, yes?
Yeah.
So when we see the expenses, you know, if there's an expense figure, you know, what's the
That's crazy.
Is it for Mr. Martin to go out on a Friday night, you know, to the Atlantis Casino? Well, we hope not, yeah. So very good point there. It could be, again, that it's due to this recent situation. So again, she should respect us trying to help look at her personal situation to start with. And then she might agree, oh, well, it's $30,000, you know. I've listened to everything you've said. And she might think, well, you're quite right, maybe for the moment when I get this $30,000, I should put it into an investment vehicle, you know, which will generate maybe some income each month for the moment, and maybe cool off on the timeshare out here for the moment. So again, we're not going to tell her to do that. What we're going to try and do is be constructive in looking at her personal situation as the starting point. Yeah, because Mr. Martin's not coming in to see us. You know, it's Jane Brown that's coming in to see you for a discussion, yeah? Now, if the discussion later leads to him coming in as well that's fine. But for the moment, we're going to work with her and try and help her, would I suggest be a really good starting point. Everybody happy with that?
So what's the first thing you do? Budget planner.
And she need a reality check.
A real one. Not like that, but
a real one.
It's a reality check because you go through the budget planner and then she'll see for herself, oh gosh, you know, I'm really tight on my expenses, and then you can ask a question that I know you'd love to ask the gentleman there. Oh, well, does that go towards Mr. Martin's expenses? Yeah?
Oh my God.
Exactly. So, you know, that's what we've got to pinpoint.
Yeah.
So all the expenses, or some of them, just together. So we've got to get closer to it and make the whole thing. And then, of course, when you've done that, a useful second document would be to say to her, oh, well, let's have a look at your personal sheet. Now, this might be quite a shock, because from what we read, we don't know if she's got any assets whatsoever.
Yeah, sure. We need a reality check.
We don't know she's got nothing. And here's our first chance to have an asset of $30,000 coming in, and what you going to do with it? Yeah. Or let's give Mr. Martin to buy this timeshare in Florida.
What a time.
So you see, you know. So I'm sure when Mr. Martin walks in, all of you ladies will love him instantly because he was some sort of big character, personality. Yeah. Okay, well that's as far as we can take it really. So because it's not like a real case, but you know, if Jane came in, start the budget planner, see what's going on with her to begin with, then step into the balance sheet, and I think that would be a real reality check to her, because I suspect she has no assets. You know, maybe she's got a car, but maybe there's you know, a loan against the car. She's possibly just renting her own property, and she's got no assets, and here's the first time she's going to have an asset of $30,000, and that's going to be whistled straight away on this new exciting venture. You know, which we know nothing about. We don't know.
She's a 35-year impressionable year-old, very impressionable.
At 35?
I think so. I think so. to take 30,000 and want to do that in a timeshare, this woman have to be crazy.
I ain't not doing the age. She just silly.
Yeah, somebody's messing with her head.
So you must be a smart guy.
She's still on, they say it takes 2 years for the infatuation to pass over, she's still in infatuation.
Hang on, I'm gonna lose my money.
Okay, well that's a really good discussion. So let's close down the Jane Brown for the moment. What we're going to move into is starting our journey on looking at business situations, because you'll get, you know, business proprietors coming in to see you where maybe they're getting a salary out of the business, or maybe they're getting a dividend out of the business if it's a larger business. You know, there could be quite a small business, or could be quite a large one. So that's what we're going to move on to, financial situation analysis, part 2. I hope you can find this a bit easier.
What's the name of it?
Right here, final situation analysis part 2. It's right at the end of the budget planner, and you flip those 3 pages. It's right there. After you pass budget planner, 3 pages down, right
Still
there.
in module 1.
Yes, still in module 1.
One.
So what
It
you
has
want?
to, yeah, it's one. It doesn't
See,
have
it look like this.
yeah, proper sequencing, that's the thing.
So module 1 has 2 main parts to it. It has the financial situation where you're looking at individual clients, just like Edwards and Jane Brown.
It
And
looks
then
like
we see in the
this.
second
See?
part, we start to look at
Oh,
businesses.
yes, okay.
Okay, now what we're going to do is we're just going to take a 5-minute, very short break while I get some water, because it's really hot. And you can have a comfort break or stretch your legs.
Right.
Then we'll reconvene in just 5 minutes, okay?
All right?
Okay, 5-minute break.
Make sure you stick your eyes out. I'm tall last night, so you know when my son has fusion with his son today, and they sent a message to me that I never did it. I have to be so like my pants, so my cousin picking them up. And so I'm like, she's like, I'm on my way, so I took a quiet laugh. I was like, babe, the children, because my son is 13, and so I just dash it because I'm on my way now.
Yeah.
You know? And then I'm like, okay, she's back. She's like, I'm here. I'm gonna. It's like, okay, didn't want to miss out. So, and then I already paid. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's another big thing. You really did.
Yeah.
I just get a comment last week. Oh Lord.
You work at CIFP, right? What do I need to do to apply? How do I go about applying online? Y'all have online?
I can say it's true.
Most people are saying, you don't go to the website.
No.
No, you don't either.
No, I don't suggest that. I suggest you, and even this way, I'm gonna lie, it's a little hard. Take your resume, to my head office right here.
Right. Okay, right
Yeah,
here.
right here.
Should
I mean,
shoot.
literally,
Should
right
shoot
here.
right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take your resume, tell them you want your resume, No, well, I'm not gonna allow you to come up because HR is embedded past corporate, so you have to be passing. But I would say take it here. Give it, if you give it to the security guard, they're pretty good with getting it to HR. And I would follow up and ask them for a telephone number. And I would follow up and call them to see whether or not they received it. Because I can tell you the hardest part is actually getting the stuff there and having someone. I think it's the same thing with in general. As far as getting a resume, I'm serious.
I know, and I work for Amman. I think people call me all the time.
Yeah.
And now it's the point where people just come bring me the resume themselves. Like I had 3 and I just hired, you know, so I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like looking for a job is like another job.
It is.
Yeah. I just have a friend who's been out of work for like from February in the hotel industry and management position, and I think he had to go back to his old job. He told me they were calling him this week, and it's a lower position that he was when he was there. Which he has to get, you know,
Just to get here.
he have to make it all.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to make that choice as far as you want to do something new, but the present job that you're in, you don't have the time to actually search the way you need to search. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes, depending on your financial situation, you may have to make that leap of faith.
Agreed. But most people don't set up like that.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm in AP now. I've been doing it forever. I enjoy accounts payable, but I've always wanted to go into being a financial advisor. So I actually went to college, but I just didn't have the means. And so now I do. Okay, now I'm about to go into it. So now I'm gonna be like, you know, I got this income coming in there, so I can basically go in as an entry level into that field. So I think I just want to, before I make that shift, make sure I have buffer to deal with my obligations.
I think that's the biggest issue there, having that buffer to do something like that.
Unless they get,
Okay, can I just ask
you have to know.
Can you see the screen okay with the document on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
And you have to know, I guess when you look at your expenses, okay, what is the minimum you could take to handle that shift? You can take a $10,000 cut and then still be able to pay my bills.
Exactly. To say take that leap of faith and go full time into looking for what this that you want. How long can you go?
How long?
Into the second part, the financial situation analysis part 2. Now, what I recommend you do is, just on that opening page there, is you write down the 3 key documents we'll be looking for. When we look at a small business, that someone has just started, or when we're looking at a partnership, or we're looking at a small company, or we're looking at a very large business, or we're looking at the Atlantis Hotel, for example, or we're looking at Apple computers, or whatever, there are 3 key documents that we'll need to focus on. Now, one you can write on this piece of paper, income statement, yes? So the income statement, which will be very important because we'll be looking what the sales of the business are, the $10,000, $100,000, or $100 million, or over $1 billion. And as financial advisors, that's going to give you instant picture of what you're going to be encountering. And again, that's very, very important to you as financial planners because, once again, you're trying to get to know your customer, and if the guy walks in or the lady walks in and you're starting to talk about figures and she says, oh, well, there's my income statement, you look straight for the top line, don't look for the bottom line. We're going to look at that shortly. Look for the top line to see what the sales are, because that will give you an instant situation for you in handling the interview situation. So if this customer coming in, they give you the income statement, and boy oh boy, you see sales were $2 billion, well, you know, I'm going to have to be very sharp today to cope with this situation. Or if it's a $20,000 business, you know, it's going to be a totally different discussion. So income statement will be one. Now from the discussion so far, we talked about the balance sheet, the personal balance sheet. So this time again, we want the balance sheet, but we can simply call it the business balance sheet, yeah? So it's not a personal balance sheet. And if you call it a business balance sheet, then that will help you in a lot of situations, because, as I say, it could be a small startup business, but it's still a business balance sheet. Could be a partnership, could be a small company, could be a big company, could be a huge company. But it'll still be the same, it'll be the business balance sheet. And if you want to make a note against that, it'll be all of the assets and all of the liabilities. And what you're looking for there will be the business net worth. So just the same as we talked about a personal balance sheet, looking for the person's net worth. When we look at business, whether small, medium, large or very large, we're looking for the business net worth position. And again, the thing to remember is the income statement you've been looking at, that's probably over a 12-month period. I mean, sometimes it won't be that, but generally most accountants prepare these figures over a 12-month period. But the balance sheet, don't forget, is one moment. It'll be one day that they've struck the balance sheet on. And then what do you think will be the third important document in businesses?
Sales forecast.
Cash flow statement.
Yeah, sales forecast is important, but that's like a management accounting use building up on your income statement. Yes, so you knew what your income was, and you stay as a sales forecast. It's time to go into budgeting, and we will do some budgeting probably in our third Saturday together. We'll look at some budgeting. But yes, the cash flow forecast or the cash flow budget, people call it different things, or cash flow worksheet. That's the really, really important document. And you know, a lot of people say cash is king, and it is, you know. So whether it's Jane Brown's situation, or Mr. Edwards, or the business situation you look at, cash flow will be of paramount importance. And you know businesses there in Nassau where maybe they haven't made a profit, they might have made a loss for a couple of years, but they're still in business. So I mean, how can they do that? They can do that because somehow they're managing the cash flows. You know, when a business fails, it fails not because of a lack of profits. When a business fails, it fails because they run out of cash. And they can't get any cash from anywhere, yeah? You know, they've got no cash reserves left. They can't get cash from new shareholders coming in, or there's no more cash coming from the lenders. You know, that's the end of the trail. So the business fails because it runs out of cash. Okay, so there's three key documents. Income statement, the balance sheet, business balance sheet this time, and the cash flow. And that will put us on the straight and narrow right through our discussions in terms of our financial planning. So let's have a look. And so in part one, we looked at various methods we talked about. In this section, we look at the more complex situations. So it will be a little bit harder than what we've been discussing, but we've got plenty of tools and techniques to assist you with this. So it's where the clients are reliant on business trading performance for their income ability. This could be a salary, could be a dividend, or it could be both. It depends on the structure of the business. So we'll begin this analysis by looking at some key areas of business performance, and we're going to be looking at this. So key areas will be the client and the type of business that they have. What's the structure of the business? In other words, if we're looking at the balance sheet, what's the assets in the balance sheet? And if there's any debt, is there collateral in place to support this with the lender? So you could underline that there. If there is debt, can we look for the repayment ability of the debt, the serviceability of the debt, from the business we're looking at. And then once again, monitoring will be the key aspect. Do we need to put some sort of monitoring of the performance into what we're doing there? Now here's a diagram of some of the key areas. And you can see there's the customer at the top there. So once again, when we say customer this time, could be a sole trader. So we're looking for the character and the skills, the management skills of that one person. So if it's a partnership, we're looking at the two people. If it's a small company, we're looking at the directors. If it's a large company, well, we're looking at the board of directors and senior management. So it depends what you're looking at. Then when we look at the business, as we said before, we're looking for the assets, any security, what's the net worth of the business, any repayment plans on debt, serviceability of debt, and any monitoring in place. Now, I put a like caution in here, these areas are shown above. This diagram should be studied carefully in order to avoid the pitfall of client evaluation with little regard to the business, its net worth or serviceability, or where you're looking at a strong asset structure in the balance sheet, don't forget the debts have to be serviced. If any of these key areas are ignored, problems will be encountered sooner or later. So the full assessment needs to be made to reach a balanced judgment. Now here's a very important point. This next paragraph should really highlight this. It's vitally important to remember that a business, no matter how strong its balance sheet, so you might be looking at this business has got a fantastic balance sheet, lots of assets in there, but they can't carry a debt burden, so that's lending burden, greater than can be serviced by the income earning capacity of the business. So you need to highlight all this paragraph. It's for this reason great emphasis will be placed on understanding the trading profile of the business, which is displayed in the trading and profit and loss account, where you could put their income statement, and is projected in the profit and cash flow budgets. So what we're trying to say here, and this is a trap that's been in lending for a long time, where some lenders, have looked at the business balance sheet and thought, wow, this is strong. What collateral can I get? And they take the collateral, accept the business because it's very strong balance sheet, but they don't really look at the serviceability of the debt. So what they do is they put themselves in a false position of not really exploring, the KYC aspect. Because if you do that approach and you lend against assets with little regard to serviceability, what you'll find is sooner or later, there will be a problem. Yeah? Sooner or later there will be a problem which will have to be looked at, addressed in terms of the debt profile. So we're saying, make a full assessment. Everybody okay so far? So back to our essential requirements that we discussed in Financial Situation Part 1. So this time it's going to be slightly different. So the cash flow will tell us the business income streams and what's to be done with the money and how much is required to be extremely.
You're breaking up.
Okay. And the document
Let me get together.
Yeah, the internet drop. That's what happened. It didn't stay.
Cash flow.
Keith, 1 minute, Keith, 1 minute.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear us either.
Hold on.
Coming in.
We're not hearing you.
That's it, we're doing well. We're back, okay?
Yeah,
You can hear me okay?
No, we couldn't hear you for a
For a
minute.
while, the last thing we heard was cash flow statement.
Okay, well, okay, so there we go, essential requirements. cost and forecast, we'll tell you the business income streams,
Right.
what's to be done with the money, yeah, and what I said was, we'll use our cash flow worksheet that we have in the module to look at what cash is coming in, what cash is going out. Everybody okay now?
Yeah.
Is it clear now? That's good. Thank you. Thanks for getting that sorted out. And then what we're interested in is financial planners is can we see scope for dividend payments, from this cash flow? Is there surplus for dividend payments? And is there surplus for the repayment of debt? So what we'll be looking at very closely is this aspect of debt servicing and dividend payments to the directors or the business proprietors. We'll also be looking for the buffer in the business, which is the net worth, which will be illustrated in the audited accounts and in any projected balance sheet. So you see we're coming up with a mixture here of actual documents and then also some forecasts as well, which takes us into the area of management accounting as opposed to accounting. Because accounting, as you know, tends to be historic.
Go on again. Connection today. It's a BPLE.
Yeah, that's cable Bahamas. Signal drop in and out.
Yeah, if you reboot it, we might get a better signal then.
Yeah, you can ask him to reboot it right now.
Yeah, thanks.
What was the next last week?
It depends on the signal,
Yeah.
Oh my God,
What you said?
oh my God,
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah, because they're doing the generators. They say they have to do the generator. I'm trying to install this.
Last night it was over 2 hours, then it gone off this morning.
Well, Sunday, were you a part of that Sunday one where it felt like it was 10 times?
Yeah. It's horrible. I don't know what's going
The
on.
generator, that's what they say. They're trying to put these, and they had the whole road.
They said not till September.
But they brought them in. They had the whole road.
They already moved on.
Yeah, they moved all. They had their police escort and blocking off the road, shutting down. Had to. Helicopter just gonna drop it there.
Yeah, because they were saying they could have brought them in on a barge or lifted everything, eh?
I think the problem must was it was too well for too. Bring it, yeah.
Right, because they don't have an actual dock. It's a time to stay out to sea.
All right, Keith, I guess you could,
Yeah.
come through, because I think the signal is just really unstable on our end.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much Miguel could do with that. There's more cable bound.
Okay.
Really strong, yeah.
Okay, let's continue then. So, is the screen still active?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, good. Okay, so there's two parts to this, the technical ability of the client, that's going to be where you're looking at these people, can they do their
It's
jobs
not stable.
effectively, the people that you're looking at. And then looking at the integrity
We won't
Oh.
break
of
it.
the people.
It comes in after a while.
You want him to refresh it, to restart it?
Well, I think if you
Some time.
restart it, quite often that fixes it because you get a better signal for some reason.
Okay, we'll have him do that then. He's gonna do it right now.
Thanks. It's been going pretty good, Miguel. It just faded away a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. I can't see him.
It's his assistant.
What's your name, love?
Michael.
Oh, yeah.
I can start it right now, so you can call right back.
Excellent.
This institution of generator, if electricity would go.
I don't think so, but I see the generator right downstairs. Brian shut the power in this building.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You think all of this load shedding is going to be reflected in my bill this month?
sure that they will have a plan, because it's hard when the commission board, the commission have to work hard.
They'll have some excuse, some excuse.
Okay, here we go, let's try again.
Alright, there you go.
If you keep dropping, that's just it.
Yeah, I figured as much.
I guess it's too much, you know, like.
Yeah.
Right, okay, we're back on.
Yep.
Let me just try and share my screen again. Share the screen. We should start to see the screen. Can you see that?
Yes.
Excellent, okay. So let's go for it. So two parts here, the technical ability of the people you're dealing with, so it's going to be very important. You know, whether it's small, medium or large business, we need good technical skills. And then the integrity, which brings us back to that KYC again. And here's some questions by way of a checklist. Now some of these you might not think are appropriate, and you might want to add some to this list, but how long has the client been known?
Connection loss.
Yeah, this is awful, isn't it?
Reconnect.
How long has the client been known? What's the track record? If this client isn't known to you, you know, why is the client making the approach to you? Now, that's quite a penetrating question, because sometimes people will come to you because, you know, they've heard you're a very good person and you're very helpful, etc., etc. But sometimes people come to you because, you know, they've had a problem where they were before, and maybe the plan that they're looking at is being turned down by another, you know, financial planner or another institution. So always be just slightly careful, you know, when it's someone who's come to you that you've never met before. If they come to you from somewhere else, can they show an acceptable track record from before? We talked about this, about a credit bureau and the difficulties that you have with that one. Now what about business experience, especially in the area of the trade? This is very important, because from time to time you'll get somebody coming in, I have this really great idea to start this so-and-so business. Oh yeah, well that sounds a good idea. What experience have you had in this type of work? Oh, well, I haven't had any experience in it, but, you know, I was having a beer in the bar with my friend, and he thought it was a great idea if we went into this sector.
Sometimes all you need is an idea, Keith. Yeah, that's coming in really bad. That's capable. Can you hear us, Keith?
You know, there's disruptions. I'm trying to give good ideas, but really, we've got to have some sort to be able to do this, usually. Now the next one is where we're starting to get down to business. What's the client's worth financially? And the really tricky question, particularly globally at the moment, so I nearly said Caribbean, but that's not fair. This would be typical in South America and typical in the UK right now. How is that personal worth being accumulated? You know what I'm getting at there. You know, what's the source of the personal worth? That we've got to be really careful. You know, we get a lot of rich business people coming in to invest in property in London, but where have they got the money from? Is the question. Yeah. What's the client's personal commitment to the business? Now what I'm thinking of there is, if there is any lending to the business, you know, has the client given some sort of guarantee for the borrowing? And then coming to this point about life and health cover, and I know you picked up quite strongly on this last week, that maybe this isn't looked at quite sufficiently in Nassau at the moment. Now, business resources would be an absolute key area. Now today, of course, lots of businesses are managing via the internet, yes, so they might not have any business physical resources whatsoever, so things have changed, since we wrote this section here. But if they do have a business with physical premises, then what I'd like you to underline is visiting the business. Now this is really, really important. If you can't do it, someone in the institution should do it, because you get so much information when you actually visit the business. You can see what the business, does it look efficient or does it look an absolute mess? And most people in business really reach around. If they don't want to show you around, there's probably a sinister reason that they don't want to show you around. I remember when I first came to Nassau all those years ago, I went to Arawaki. It wasn't with Miguel, it was before Miguel started at the Institute. And we headed for Goldie's Bar, because I was fascinated to find out why this business would be called Goldie's Bar. Where I found out within about 30 seconds, because there he was. He had gold on every finger, gold chain around his neck, I think he had gold implants, etc., etc. So I quickly learned why it was called Goldie's Bar. But the other side to that was, he had the conch, and of course, being from the UK, I called it conch, because it's spelled, isn't it, C-O-N-C-H? And you get,
Oh my God.
You call it conch, don't you? Conch fritters.
Conch.
And I was thinking, oh,
We don't even look at that stage of that.
No, man, he said, it's conch. He said, you know what conch is? I said, I have no idea whatsoever. And he said, I'll show you. So he got out one of the big, and he showed me how to pull it out, tap it and then pull it out. So visiting that business is just an example. It could be a hotel. You have a walk around, see how it's organised. Is the reception area look good? Are the rooms nice? Pool looks clean outside, etc., etc. People are happy. Customers, you see the people who are staying there, so they look pretty happy. So the business visit is absolutely powerful, I think is the right expression. And sometimes you go places and you think, oh my God, look at the state of this. And that's when you've got a big problem, on your hands.
But
I'll tell you one thing.
Keep in mind now, in the Bahamas in particular, right? I think we struggle with a lot of Bahamians starting up businesses because it's really just on an idea. It's like the body shop, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so I'm looking at all of these requirements that are here, and there are times, I have to stress this, there are times that, sometimes the bank have to say, okay, we're gonna partner with you. I can give you one example. My company that I work for, Family Guardian, in 1965, our chairman told us a story of how he, along with two other close friends, went into the bank to borrow $25,000 to start an insurance company.
Yeah.
And was turned down by so many banks.
Yes.
Except one particular loan officer at a particular bank
Right.
said, okay, you don't have no collateral, you don't meet half of these requirements,
Yes.
but I'm gonna lend it to you in good faith.
Right.
And now that company is worth more than $370 million today.
This is probably worth more than the bank.
So, it's tricky. It's very tricky sometimes.
It is, that's
With business, helping out businesses and
interesting. Yeah. Okay, well, just one point on that. Excuse me. What we're looking at here, is kind of existing businesses, and a bit later on, I'll try and
so this is existing, okay.
we're look, it's much further in, page 17. You can see page 17, we started talking about business startups.
Okay, startups, okay, got it.
So
That's a different module, okay.
But it's a difficult area for client evaluation, just as you said,
Yeah,
because often there'll be no track record.
yeah.
We do want to try and help, but startups have a high failure rate.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so what we try to do is we try to persuade the people, if they haven't done it already, is to come up with a business plan. Yeah, we want to see them do a business plan. Now, it's a small business, it doesn't have to be 100 pages, whizzy things and blah, blah, blah. It might be on 3 or 400 pages. That would be fine. And here's some key areas that we want them to put in. Like the business you were describing. We're going to start this insurance. What's the objectives? Who are going to manage it? What's the market like? Is there a market space? What we're trying to do? What have we got? Do we need supplies? Etc. etc. So that would be the starting point. So I know I've done a quick diversion there.
Okay.
But that's just to try and help you that those questions that we're looking at are intended at this stage primarily
For an
for
existing
business
business.
that's
Okay.
already trading. Very good. And then when we come to business startups, it's quite fascinating, just like you said with the body shop. And look at Microsoft with Bill Gates.
Oh my God.
He started in a room above the garage in his mother's house.
Oh my God.
And if he'd come in to see us, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to start a business where when you switch the computer on, you don't see," and probably some of you can't even remember this, you don't see C://
Yeah.
which I could never understand anyway. You had to get past that, didn't you, before you could get the thing working?
Yeah.
So, so he was quite revolutionary. So there's another interesting case. Another one, of course, is Dell Computers. Mr. Dell, again, he started in a room above the garage. And how he started was a friend of his got a computer, and Dell said, "Look, I'll try and make it easier for you because it's complicated. I'm going to strip this computer down and make it easy for you to use." And that was the start of Dell Corporation, giving us businesses in the USA, and probably the computer the guy's got in the office there, that's probably a Dell computer. So, business startups are a fascinating area. But if we're looking at an existing business, what's their experience? How long have they been there? What techniques are they using? Are they in control, or do they spend a lot of time away, maybe playing golf at Cable Beach, or we're still golf on Paradise Island? How Bahamas has changed. When I first came there, I actually played golf on Paradise Island. It was quite cheap. You just turned up. There's a few people there. You paid a few dollars and off you went. Goodness me. There's no chance I could play there now, unless you're staying at the one and only Ocean Club or whatever. Or at the Atlantis, it'll cost you hundreds of dollars.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Now, talk about business. Goodness me. I actually stayed all those years ago at the Ocean Club. It was just a tiny place with one or two small condos, I think you call them.
Villas.
Yeah, villas. I mean, look at it now. I mean, he's clever, isn't he?
What?
Talk about branding. The one and only Ocean Club.
That's right.
That sounds a bit different than the Ocean Club, doesn't it? Then all you've got to do next is persuade Oprah Winfrey to stay there.
Which she has many times.
Yeah, exactly, big celebrities, and then you're in, aren't you?
That's right.
And then you can put the price up to about $10,000 a night.
That's right.
As opposed to $100 that I paid when I stayed there. Yeah, anyway, I'm getting digressed now. So, management, key area, any type of business, how strong is the management? Is there any delegation of routine things there? Or are they obsessed with managing all the minute details? Oh, and then the final point, who keeps the business records? The key question for you, who keeps the business records? And then, where are they done, who signs them off, etc., etc. I visited this laundry company, And it wasn't for like personal laundry, it was for, they had contracts with hotels and things. It was industrial laundry. And they had terrible cash flow problems. And I went to this laundry, and I took a walk around, director showed me all around. Everything looked brilliant. And then I went downstairs into the like canteen area. And she offered me a cup of tea, and I was saying to her, oh, you know, what sort of work do you do here? And she said, oh, well, I make like tea for visitors, and you know, I manage the canteen. She said, but my other job's really difficult. I said, well, what's that? She said, well, I keep the business records for the industry laundry. I said, well, how can you do that when you've got all these other things to do? She said, oh yes, look in this drawer here. She pulled this drawer open. In this drawer was full of papers. And you can guess what these papers were. These papers were invoices for work that the laundry had done that had never been processed. So I went back upstairs, I said to the directors, I found your cash flow problem. I said, well, how have you done that? I said, the answer's easy. I said, it's the drawer, your cash flow problem's a drawer downstairs. And I said, that's all the clue I'm going to give you. You need to go and find it.
Proper system.
Automated
system.
But you don't have no cash coming in. If you don't bill people for the work, people are not going to pay, are they?
Oh my God.
So, yeah, so these the records are important, you know. So you see the business size, again you get an instant picture, you know, as a financial planner, what you're looking at, the state of the buildings and machinery. You know, I've got a story for like everything because I've done it for so long. I visited this factory. It was a steel processing factory. And before I went, I looked at the balance sheet. In the balance sheet, there was plant and machinery, $500,000. So I thought, oh, that sounds really good, you know, in this steel processing factory. So of course, when I got there, I thought, well, I must have a look at this plant and machinery. And to my horror, in the corner of the factory was this machine, and it had all rust on it and looked absolutely dreadful.
Oh my God.
So I said to the directors, I said, you know, I looked at your balance sheet. This plant and machinery of $500,000. They said, oh yes, that's it over there. I said, you've got to be joking, I wouldn't pay $5,000 for that. $500,000.
What?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So it was a bit of creative accounting in the balance sheet. So, have the buildings machinery capacity to meet production plans? So that would be looking at the business plan again. And then do they have a business plan? Do you get a lot of business plans currently in NASA or not?
Yes, I would say so.
I thought they had to be in
No,
the bank. It has
a
to
lot of it is
serve.
education for small businesses, especially with startups.
Exactly.
We give a very generic plan to clients
Good.
with some outlines, and then they hopefully they fill it out.
Like a template.
Yeah, we have a lot of resources. It's just that people do not utilize the resources. BAIC will assist you with the business plan, but a lot of persons just don't know that they will help. You have to actually encourage them to go there.
Right, right.
I think they don't know because they don't want to. Like, when you try to start a business, you try, like how you talked about YouTube and you know stuff like that. You try to, when you're really hungry for something, you try to grasp as much.
Seek it out.
You go in the circles where you talk to people who already have business. Like my mom opened up a business. She has people that come to her and say, "How did you do this?" You know, but then again, she comes from a finance background in the banking, so when she presents things to the bank, literally they don't have to ask her for anything else because she already know what they need.
Wow.
You know, but you have a lot of people, and she still, even though she had a business, she still went to the program that they had and did the starting up business program they had in Freeport, and she did that. And she went
You mean the bank office staff?
That's the government. The government, and they'll help you.
But you see, the difficulty is when, especially with, as Katrina was saying, startup businesses, especially when you meet individuals, all they know is they have this idea. And nobody has done no real work.
No.
Right.
All they know is they have the idea.
And you need the money.
Very few persons have a business plan or they have any strategy on the way forward. All they know is the idea. They work for John Doe, and I know how to do the work. So I started this business. I could do it.
That's like me. My goal, my retirement goal is to open a bed and breakfast
Right.
in Freeport. You know, that's originally where I'm from. I've already looked at the properties in the area that I
Yeah.
want. I'm like, okay, I'm praying that this property is available when I'm ready to put down the down payment. And I said, okay, it'll probably be there, it'll sit, and then I'm gonna start doing the plan. But I've already started. It sounds easy, but I've already started looking at different models, different styles, different.
Is
you
it,
know,
is it
I
always
don't know how
wise
to
to
do it
start by,
until-
is it wise though to start by purchasing a property? I mean, sometimes you just don't know how the business is gonna take off. Sometimes you have to let your customers grow your business, make that
True.
demand.
Sometimes
Some
you
people
have to start
go
by
big.
renting. But
Yeah,
in a place
I
like this,
wouldn't-
whereas
Some people put too much in it and it don't
probably
work out
literally
right
right
up in a
across
big
the street
loss.
from the beach.
Mhm.
It's a good deal. Like literally, I'm trying to see if I can lock it in.
Mhm.
It's 200. It's over an acre, and every property in Freeport is cheaper, but it's like 50,000, and it's 200 by 30 some and 200 by 30 some, and so. I'm in a negotiation now trying to lock it in, but I don't plan on building on it tomorrow.
Let me give you another
That's the
example.
retirement
I have
plan.
a friend of mine, and y'all know her. Everybody knows her because over the years we patronized. She had a small little Jamaican restaurant her and her husband ran. Small little, right on Village Road in the back, right where J.S. Johnson is, to that corner. And it was like in this little, complex. And, she really got her marketing out. And the business, her customers tell her, you need a bigger space, you need a bigger space, a bigger space. So, she went and she opened up, I think the first one she opened up was JFK, if I'm not mistaken. JFK was Negril. You all know Negril, yeah. And that took off, and then she opened up one Southwest, and that took off. No, you have to understand her plan. You have to keep in mind now. Every individual have a plan. Her plan really, because like I said, she's a good friend of mine. Her plan really was to really open up in the U.S. That's really where that's the market she really wanted to take off in. But she really used the Bahamian market to help build the business. When she was able to have enough cash, she set her business over there. Now, all of her business over here pretty much closed down, and she's now doing well in the U.S. So,
And a retail, because
Yeah.
bread and breakfast, you have to have your own structure.
Yeah.
yeah, but I guess,
So that's a
yeah,
different business
yeah,
model, yeah.
wow. But that's a lot of money she have to invest up front.
Yeah, capital.
Without any guarantee that it will be, and that could be so risky, I'm telling you.
I feel like that.
Yeah, it's risky, man.
But with that, you have to be in. You definitely have to be in it. So my goal is to have my.
See, the problem with that is competition could crush her.
I think
The
your
problem with that is
biggest
competition
issue-
could crush her.
No, I think your biggest issue could actually be the building of the building, because the market as it is right now is cheaper just to buy a building than it is
Yeah,
to build one over
yeah.
there.
It is, but right now I have an old colleague that did that with apartment complex. It's called the Dove. Not Dove, Dolphin Inn. If you go on Facebook or anything, you'll see it.
Right.
It was an apartment complex that my girlfriend actually lived in, rented out, and she bought the building, and I think she added on a piece of restaurant, and it's like a boutique hotel now, because she turned them, and the rooms, if you look at the rooms, it's nice, it's quaint, it's everything. I went to the restaurant several times, like, what, I didn't have to pay, but it's, top shelf, when you go there, when you turn to the corner, it's hidden away, but she's booked out, it's on the canal, and the food is always good, it's always well displayed, it's a very nice, the ambiance is nice. And she did that. She took a hotel, an apartment complex, and turned it into that.
Motel.
So that's also another avenue that you could go when that's
You
very
might be
good.
looking at clientele, airlift, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And then how you market too.
Yeah,
And I
marketing
feel,
is
let me tell
key.
you something what I feel with marketing.
God.
Marketing at the end of the day, a lot of it goes with connections. Your circle, because who she is and who her husband is, they have very good connections, and so a lot of people go there and say, oh, I go in, so they don't do much major marketing or anything like that. You could go on their website, but it's just saying that to say that when you want information or when you want to start a business, you have to really go seek
You have
out.
to
Like for
seek
me,
out.
I will go and sit with, I already contacted my girlfriend that's close to her and I said, when I come back to people, I want to sit with Sherry.
Yeah.
You know, get the idea of how you, so you have to research. You just can't go to the bank and say, okay, I want to open a bank breakfast and you just give me $100,000, $200,000 to start.
Your business plan is sure
Yeah.
it's profitable.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll pick up on that aspect because the next part, as you can see on the screen, is where we're going to do some, mathematical analysis, but we'll leave that for next week. So, and you see there, what we'll be talking about is key ratio analysis. So ratios are a means of extracting figures from any business, whether it's small, medium, large, or very large, to try and give us an indication, once again, of the track record of the business. So we talked about the track record of the person. To try and identify the track record of a business, we need a technique to be able to draw out the information from the income statement, from the balance sheet, and from the cash flow, so that will paint like a financial performance picture of the business, just like you were trying to do with John Edwards in a personal situation, and Jane Brown in a personal situation. When we look at these businesses, we're going to look at a certain number of ratios to pull together this information. So just for the last sort of 10 minutes or so, I'll just walk you through the ratios, but don't worry too much about them because next week we'll put them into practice on a case study, and then when we've got the figures pulled out, we'll say, well, what are these figures telling us? Is this business getting better? Is it getting worse? Is there a mixture of things coming through? So what we're looking for is the business track record. So just for the last 10 minutes, I'll take you through these ratios. So this is page 5. And you see the first ratio that I put in was, like I said earlier, that sales will be a good place to start because it gives you an instant picture on the size of the business. And also, if you're in discussion with any business client, they might not know, too much about the liquidity of the business or whether the business has leverage, or working capital, all these financial terms. But every business person I ever met always knows about the sales, yeah? So it's a really good opening point. So just the same with the ratios. If we start with sales, and you can pull out the sales growth, or if sales is in decline, it's an equally important ratio to pull out. But sales growth, we would look at sales in year 2 minus the sales in year 1 divided by sales in year 1 times 100, that would give us a percentage. And then you could say, well, we've worked this out, we get 10%. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is we can look at the previous year, and if the previous year was 5%, well, we know that sales in the year we're looking at is much better at 10%. And also what we could do is we could try and benchmark this against similar businesses in a similar industry, yeah? And on some occasions, when you're looking at a large company, you could measure that large company against what we would call the peer performers, yeah? So we could look at the ones, in the top range and see how our ratios compare, and, is there a justifiable reason why maybe they're not getting the same? Because it could be, as you've been mentioned just recently, competition, in the particular area that you're looking at. Now, I had this on a client once where sales actually collapsed by 50%. And I had to present to the credit committee that we should continue with the bank facilities for these people, although the business had collapsed by 50%. So the opening question was things like, oh, Keith, you must be crazy, or blah, 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 things like that. And I said, no, look, when you look at this very, very carefully, I said, I've done some comparative figures for you. And you see the industry, the other players in this industry, their sales have collapsed by 60 and 70%. So actually the customers that we've had And by the way, we've had these customers for 30 years. In 30 years, never had a bad year. But what's happened is the industry sector that they're in has had a huge decline, and they've suffered very badly. But what I'm asking you to do is be with these people who have been performing before. So sales growth or sales decline, very good starting point. Now the next one, which is very, very important, is the gross profit margin. Now this is not the net profit. Net profit's much further down in the statement, and I'll take you through this next week. But gross profit is gross profit divided by sales multiplied by 100, and this will give us gross profit as a percentage. And this is really, really important because some businesses will have a very high gross profit margin, which means there's plenty of scope for coping with all those other
The debt is killing them.
overheads. And then some will have a very small gross profit margin, so they're going to have a tough time trying to cope with their overhead costs. I'll give you a quick example. If you think of a business that's importing, if you think of an importer business, which you've got a lot of in Nassau, an importer, they're not manufacturing. An importer is buying in the goods, and then they're going to be selling them on to other businesses, yeah? So, for example, an importer of, say, clothing, they'll be going to be selling them on to the clothing stores. So generally, an importer will have quite a fine margin because they can only pass on a certain level of additional costs. We're going to come back on these when we do them mathematically to make, a lot more sense. Number 3, this carries on to page 4. Operating profit margin, I'll just mention this before we close. Operating profit margin is PBIT. That's the profit before interest and tax. Now, I won't ask you on this program to memorize many things, but this is one thing you should definitely memorize. Operating profit is profit before interest and tax. And if you want the American equivalent, which you should, it's EBIT, earnings before interest and tax, which I'm sure you've heard about. And this is a very important profit margin. Why? Because when you talk to some business customers, when you talk with group of accountants, quite often accountants, when they're thinking of profit, they think about the operating profit. Now, don't think about net profit, yeah? You think about the bottom line position. So this is why you have to be careful about what profit you're looking at. Further down there'll be profit before tax, and then, on that sheet, on sheet 6 you need to write, can you see number 4 there? There's profit before tax. Well, number 5 will be the net profit. So you want to put net profit margin, so you need to write that down. And number 5 will be net profit margin, and the calculation is net profit divided by sales, and that's the bottom line position. So, just to summarize on the income statement, we'll be working those ratios. It's a step-by-step analysis, and you'll see all the time we're linking back. Yeah? So all the time we're backtracking the sales. So when I show you the example, you'll see we've got sales here, then we've got the gross profit here, then we've got the operating profit, then we've got the profit before interest, then the profit before tax, then we've got the net profit moving further down. So what that will give us is a very sophisticated financial planning review or analyst's review of the income statement. So we'll be checking it step by step, moving down and seeing what does that tell us, what does it mean, and can we compare this with other businesses. Okay, so we're up to 12 o'clock, it's on Saturday, and you don't want to get your lunch or do your Saturday afternoon thing. I'm going to do my Saturday evening thing and have a quick beer after this thing. Because it's so hot, just take a cold beer. And we'll see you again next week, and then we'll get into some of these maths. So be prepared next week to do some maths on the businesses. When you see these maths will be applicable on any side of the business, and we'll be able
Before
to
Saturdays.
get good understanding.
We skip a week.
It's the 13th,
Yes.
right?
We skip a week, right?
Keith, is next week Saturday or the following Saturday?
It's the following Saturday. Thank you for my lawyer.
Oh, okay.
Virginia. Thank you. It's 13th of July. Thanks very much.
Oh, wow.
I'm traveling.
Are you well, Rich? Do you see the report in there?
I see what you're saying.
And make sure you,
So it's overlap. We'll
make
overlap.
sure you yes, 13th of July.
Yeah, so I already told him I'm
Okay,
like
thanks.
15 minutes.
Okay.
Just
They
I
want
don't
on
want to be
July
like
Thank you very much.
Okay, Keith, you ready, Goni?
Different thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Today's date is what? That's,
29.
we're the 29th. Okay, so I just want to make sure for clarity, there's no class next week, Saturday the 6th.
No,
Okay, it's the 13th.
And there's the class on July 4th though, which is Thursday.
it's the Thursday.
Oh,
That's a different module.
We have to come here.
That's what somebody
oh,
else-
okay.
That's a different module.
So on the Thursday one, Miguel will introduce you to the
Okay.
guide,
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
skills.
We actually have one Thursday and
Rush
the 11th
skill
before we
facilitator.
come back to the
Yeah.
13th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
As we go nearby, we'll just ask them to.
We gotta follow this. See, I checking them as I
Oh,
go.
so this Thursday we have to come in.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
This Thursday, what time?
6.
6 to 8:30.
Okay. And that's on module 2.
I missed that.
Yeah, somebody
I
show
think
from
after
the
July.
I didn't see that.
After the
I didn't see
13th
that.
will be the last with Keith. Happy.
Okay, everybody?
I thought we had four,
Okay.
Keith, I thought we had 4 sessions with you, it's just
No,
3?
it's just 3.
It's
Oh.
3 sessions on this,
Okay,
and then you'll get to know some revision by looking at the films he's made and stuff like that. Yeah.
okay, sir, all right.
Okay. So the week after next, we'll be looking at these business ratios and looking at how these businesses are performing.
Yes,
And then we'll move into that very interesting area which you're very, very interested in, is looking at the business startups, yeah?
yes.
And we'll look at a startup example. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
See
you.
Saturday.
All right.
Mama, can I finish
What is the time?
If the girls are around, can I have a quick word with them if he's there?
Yeah, we're gonna call him for you, just give a minute.
I am month-end closing, so I got to try. He's hooked me up.
Thank you, well done for today.
I have to go to work for the last 2 Sundays. I had to go to work for 16 hours.
Wow.
This
Oh, that's a
week,
Sunday.
this week my average leaving work, even after done yesterday, it's almost 8 o'clock.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
it's rough.
And then I have someone new coming in, so I have to train. I'm be dealing with Monday. It's like,
Oh, wow.
gonna be an interesting week. I tell them, I say, I'm not taking my laptop with me and I'm not answering any emails when I go on vacation.
you say?
Y'all, but let me get some, I have a good lead person. I'm trying to get her promoted right now. I already talked to my director. I said, if I have them trained, I don't believe and I know everything. So I have, everyone have shadows. So when one person is out and the flow doesn't
Somebody else
stop,
can pick it up, that's
You
right.
have to have succession planning.
you have
Something
to.
about business and
I tell
leave
them.
that,
Hello?
But let me tell you something, change things is changing so fast around there.
Okay.
I tell them I wouldn't put a picture on my desk.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks, bye for now. Thank you.
Alright.
I say,
Thanks everybody, bye.
All right.
but the only thing that keeps me going in there is because I still love what I do. Like, why you
That's
in here?
good.
I just,
That is
I
an
just-
awesome